Well, by now you know who won the All-Star game and how Junior Caminero did in the home run derby, but
Back.
exactly. Gone!
He hit that one to Buckhead.
Listen, we're taking a little vacation because we get some vacation, and
Just
therefore,
a little. Is this vacation or comp time? I can't
don't even
remember.
know. I get confused. But because of that, we will talk about all those events that we missed when we get back. But we do have some quality programming for you, some great podcasts coming up here in just a second. And we're going to talk about the Bucs and break down their offense a little bit, such as it is, of course, without Tristan Wirfs, at least for the start of the season. We don't know how many weeks that is, but it's going to be significant. So we'll get into that and kind of set up training camp for you on that side of the ball anyway. And, and really kind of look at what are some of the more intriguing position battles, what are some of the questions they have entering training camp, and frankly, how do you improve on what they were able to do the last couple of years, particularly last year with the running game and all of that. So we'll talk about the offense here in just a minute. And first, I want to remind you guys to get on down to Breitling Boutique. That's at International Plaza Mall. The Breitling Company has been making the best Swiss watches now for over 140 years. They've been in International Plaza Mall for the last 5+ years. Now, you go to this store, center of the mall, upstairs, plan to spend some time there because I'm telling you, you're going to walk out with the best timepiece you've ever owned. And this store is unlike any other. The customer service is fantastic. They're going to pour you a drink. They're going to tell you about the beautiful watches that they have there available for you. Men's watches, the chronomats, the Navitimers, watches for your wife, for your girlfriend. We're talking about beautiful sports watches that are durable. If your wife is on the go like mine, she's going to be banging this thing around, but they look absolutely beautiful, and a tremendous array of wristbands to choose from for her. And right now, while supplies last, they have 32 teams in the NFL. There are 32 different versions of those team watches celebrating the NFL's 104th year anniversary. Now, that's while supplies last, but you look at these watches, they're the beautiful chronomat watch. They have the face of the watch is the color of the team that you are likely cheering for or want to buy. It's got the logo on it. They're gorgeous. Go to tampabay.com, and you're likely to see a picture of the Bucs team watch that is at Breitling Boutique. Again, while supplies last. I'm telling you, if you thought about buying a serious, nice watch for your wife, your girlfriend, for yourself, you got to give our friends at Breitling Boutique a chance. You're not going to be disappointed. It's at the middle of International Plaza Mall, second floor. And when you go, please let them know that you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. All right, so training camp not that far away. I'm going to be out there walking on the sun soon, and everybody's going to report. When I say everybody, we'll see if that includes their second-round pick. Do you see what's going on, by the way, with the second-rounders? Like, the first two guys in the second round are signed, but everybody else in the NFL, none of their second-rounders, as we start this podcast, at least, or taped it last week, are signed. And that is because, for the first time really ever since they had a rookie salary pool, both the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans, I believe, guaranteed their contracts of the first two picks in the second round. Those guarantees normally only happen in the first round. And so guess what happened after that? Every player in the second round now wants a guaranteed contract. And so nobody is signed.
Well, leave it to Cleveland to give out guaranteed contracts.
Yeah, right? Go figure.
I mean, the guy got legal problems too, I'm wondering. But
oh, my God. They're just handing out money. It's unbelievable. But yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But for right now, at least, we think everybody's going to be signed and sealed and delivered, but you can't really guarantee that at this point. So we'll have to wait and see. It is kind of funny though that it only takes one or two players to spoil it for everybody. But Benjamin Morrison, as we're doing this podcast, still waiting on his deal. That said, we're going to talk offense today, and obviously any conversation about the offense starts with Baker Mayfield. But let's go a different direction with this, and I think a couple things. Look, this is their fourth offensive coordinator in 4 years. Okay, which is it's really unheard of. Okay, now teams lose coordinators all the time. Detroit lost both theirs this season as well. When you have success, guys get opportunities to be head coaches. But to have back-to-back offensive coordinators, with Dave Canales, which is probably the most unlikely, and then last year with Liam Cohen going to Jacksonville after saying he was going to stay, um, it's good and bad. It's good that you chose well. You got guys that were successful enough to attract head coaching jobs, which is hard to do in this league. The bad news is that if you have a defensive head coach and his coordinator is going to get, has success, you're going to be hiring a coordinator every year. And they've had 4 in 4 years. Now, what's different about this year is that Josh Grizzard, who's going to be their coordinator, is an in-house hire. He was here last year as their passing game coordinator and third down coordinator. You're going to have at least continuity of the system. And when I say system, I mean in terms of terminology, what you call plays, how you line up, what your concepts are as far as a passing game, the run blocking, all of that. So there's, for the first time in 4 years, there's carryover, from one season to the next. That doesn't mean that Grizzard isn't going to put his own spin on it. He spent a lot of time in Miami, including a couple years with Mike McDaniels down there. And so he has some ideas that he's going to add to what they've been doing in the past. But all the reports, especially when you talk to Baker Mayfield and guys that are affected directly by Josh, the wide receivers last year, they're behind this guy. And he has a unique history, of course, was a high school quarterback, went to Yale, then did his graduate assistant jobs in graduate school at Duke, under David Cutcliffe. Then he went to Miami and was part of that staff for 3 different head coaches. And so he is a bright guy, to say the very least. And, about 30, 34 years old, I believe. But it's still a learning curve for him. He still has to call plays for the first time. And I don't think that'll be as big of a deal. I think that'll be offset by the fact that they can pick up where they left off last season in terms of terminology. Look, guys like Bucky Irving and, some of these Jalen McMillan and some of these guys that were his heads were spinning with the install, they're going to get, carryover from last season. The terminology hasn't changed. The concepts haven't really changed. And so they're going to be able to play faster right away. Remember how long it took McMillan to get going. So I think that that's a huge advantage, even though it's not the same. Look, there's no way to say that, you can expect Josh Grizzard to be as good as Liam Cohen. I think they caught lightning in a bottle with Liam. I really do. He had a previous relationship with Baker, albeit for about 5 weeks with the Rams. But what he did last year is unusual. Like he was spectacular. The way he got the running game going, to go from last in the league to 4th in the league, and that's really going to be the key again. We would have said that the strength of this offense is very simple. It's your offensive line, and it still may be, albeit it's tough to say when you lost the best player on that offensive line, if not on your football team, in Tristan Wirfs, who's going to miss anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks of the regular season. That's a tough pill to swallow. It's tough to come back from that. They will have a player out there playing left tackle, and he won't be anywhere near as good as Tristan Wirfs. It'll be Charlie Heck, who's been in this league for a while, signed as an undrafted or not, signed as a free agent, unrestricted free agent from the 49ers. They also have a young tackle who they paid the most money to in terms of a bonus for an offensive lineman. I think they paid him more than $50,000, and that is Benjamin Chukwuma, who's quite a prospect. I don't know that he's ready to start in the NFL week 1, but he's a hell of a prospect. So they have some guys, and we'll see. Between now and the start of the regular season, it's possible, as cuts happen, or there might be some trades made, or guys picked up here and there. It's possible that they bring in another veteran, knowing that Wirfs is going to miss some time. But there's no way to sugarcoat this. They're not the same offense that they were a couple days ago. That said, they have some strengths on this football team. We mentioned the offensive line. The running game is what was the big difference last year. You go from last to 4th in the league. I think that's obviously starts up front. I'm guessing, Steve, that as good as they were on the offensive line, there's no way to quantify what you lost in Wirfs, But you do make up for some of that with the improvement in a guy like Graham Barton. Graham Barton did an amazing job as a rookie last year. He didn't play center since his freshman year at Duke. He came in, he had a learning curve. He made mistakes. He made big mistake in the Washington playoff game. But how much better are you if that center is confident, his second year, same system, you know the kind of guy he is. I mean, you got to count on him being a better player.
No question about it. And that's part of why the Bucs have one of the best offensive lines in football. Now, that's assuming Wirfs is your left tackle, and he will be whenever he returns after 2 for whatever games it is.
Right.
But you expect Barton to get better. You expect Ben Bredesen to continue what he did last year.
Did a nice job.
Gedecke's going to keep getting better at right tackle.
Yep.
Sure, and he's done really well. Like,
just stay on the field. He had the 4 games with a concussion last year.
Yeah. That and Cody Mauch's going to continue to progress too. Like the whole point is this offensive line doesn't have to be the same offensive line it was last year. It can get better.
It can improve.
And there's growth for all those guys.
Yes.
And that's what you're expecting them to take those next steps this year.
Yep.
Much like on your receiving core, McMillan, you expect to take another step. And,
absolutely.
We'll see what steps Ibuka takes this year and how good he is. And Bucky Irving, you need to take another step. Like, he was good last year, but now you're coming in as the number 1 guy. So what steps are you going to take to improve? But that offensive line, how they manage without Wirfs for the first few games is going to be key, because the rest of the line should be, in theory, should be better than it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
But without your left tackle, it may not look like it right away either.
It may not. And offensively, right away, if you're Josh Grizzard, I have to think about how I'm going to cover for Tristan Wirfs. I can't take it on good faith or any other thing that I can just plug and play a backup at left tackle and that he's going to hold up, right? Charlie Heck's been in this league, but I have to have a plan, right? If there's a game wrecker coming off that right edge, I better have a plan. And unfortunately, that's going to take away from their offense, because that plan is going to be putting a tight end on that side. You're going to have Cade Otton, or maybe you go with 2 tight ends, right? And that means that there's one less eligible receiver or one less guy that can get down the field, as opposed to, being an extra tight end. And so, when you do that, there's a daisy chain effect. I might have to use a running back to chip on that guy off the edge, right? And if I do that, my running back, whether it's Rachaad White or Bucky Irving, they're getting out in the route slower. Or I take away Cade Otton from the game plan. There's negative effects on everybody when you have to be preoccupied with holding up at left tackle. Now, that's not to say you do it every play or every series, and you want to get the guy a chance to prove he can play the position, and maybe he'll hold up. Look, maybe he'll hold up. But you better have a plan, and that plan is going to detract from what your original plan would have been, which is we're going to let Tristan Wirfs on an island, and he's going to block the crap out of anybody over there, and he's not going to allow a sack. So I don't have to worry about the left side or the blind side of my quarterback. I don't have to roll away from him. I don't have to throw quick. In fact, I'm pretty sure, and we'll see if this materializes now with the loss of Wirfs in the first part of the season. But Grizzard talked about it. Look, they want to take more shots down the field. This team held the ball a lot. They scored a lot of points, which is great. But the one thing they didn't really have was a ton of explosives. It took them 8, 10, 12 plays sometimes to get in the end zone. Now, the good part of that is you're wearing down the defense. You're keeping your defense on the sideline. That's terrific. But you also need explosive plays. And the difference is that if I were to tell you who's your best players on this football team, you'd point to Bucky and, obviously, but it's still your wide receivers. As old as he is, and Mike Evans is going to be 32, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, if he's healthy, and then you add Emeka Ibuka, who's a first-round pick, and Jalen McMillan. That group right there, they're the ones that are going to score the points for you. But no question, Bucky Irving going into his second year is going to be a better player, because if you remember, he wasn't getting any of the starting nods. That was going to Rachaad White, except New Orleans when he missed that game until the end of the year. So Bucky was coming in second series, third series, end of the first quarter. Like, you didn't see him play series one, and now that's going to change, right? So that could be good, and it also could be bad. I think it's going to be good because I think your best player is going to be on the field when the game starts, and I think Bucky's going to be better because he's now been in the NFL. He rushed for over 1,100 yards. I think he's capable of rushing for 1,400 yards, and I think, based on his endurance, and there's a lot of this, sort of Skip Pete talks about, well, you got to be careful with it. He's a smaller guy, and you need more than one running back, and all that's true. You do, and you got more than one. You got several, okay? But Bucky is your dude, and I saw, I don't. Did you see the video of him on Twitter or X or whatever it is of him lifting weights? He was doing a couple of hand, kind of barbell things off the bench.
Yep.
Dude is jacked. Bucky Irving's arms are jacked. Like, he's gotten even stronger, which is scary because the little guy moves people. With his feet and his shiftiness, it's incredible. But Bucky is going to potentially, probably should have a better year than he did in year one because he was learning the offense. He had not played in the NFL, and he was behind Rachaad White. And you take a look at Rachaad White, and you go, okay, well, I like his game. I like what he does in third down. I like what he does as a receiver. I like what he does as a pass protector. Rachaad White's going to play for you. At times, you're going to play that pistol backfield with both Rachaad and Bucky. And, oh, by the way, Rachaad is in a contract year, and he's lost about 8 pounds, and he looks fantastic. And he's going to be quicker because he's lighter, but he's still a big back. So you love contract years. Guys are motivated. He got his starting job taken away, and there's no animosity between the two players or in that room. Like, they're all great guys. They really do pull for each other, and there's not to be a letdown when somebody else goes in the game. That includes Sean Tucker, who I think you're going to see more of this year than we did last year. Obviously, he had the big game in New Orleans, and he just disappeared. We'll see who else makes this club after, sort of those three. But this kid from LSU, Josh Williams, he's a beast. DJ Williams shows some flashes. But Tucker, Rachaad, and of course Bucky are going to be your three guys that are going to be up every week. And that's a pretty good place to start. So with the tackle out, the run game becomes more important, no question. But the defense knows that too, and they'll gauge and adjust accordingly. But I think if everybody holds up on the offensive line, the other guy that I think is underrated, and we saw what he did when the receivers were out, Cade Otton's a really good tight end. Like, he's developed into a very reliable combat catch tight end. Is he Gronkowski in the run game? Not even close. Nobody is. He needs to be a better blocker. He needs to be more physical. We'll see if he can incorporate more of that. Smart guy, makes tough catches. I don't think they're deep at tight end. I don't particularly love their tight ends. I think the guy to keep an eye on is Devin Culp. Remember what Devin did at the end of the season, getting vertical? Like, that dude is like a wide receiver at tight end.
It is. Although I kind of expect the tight ends to get off to a slow start this year.
I do too.
If nothing else, they may have to keep them in to block.
That's what I'm thinking.
For Wirfs, which means it may not be Otton playing all the time either.
It may not.
Because he's not your best blocking tight end. I mean,
I just don't, you're not going to play Keefe a whole lot. I mean, I think he's going to have to do both. He played about 90-something% of the snaps last year.
Yes.
He may have to do it again, but that room is young, except for, when Cade Otton's your oldest guy in the room, that's not a very old room. So that's going to be something to watch. Does his production go down as a receiver because of the responsibilities to help the left tackle? What's going to go on there? But they have enough weapons, assuming Mike Evans stays healthy. I don't know where Trey Palmer and Raheem Jarrett fall in there. Ryan Miller, who made some nice plays last year. Sterling Shepard, who, I think you have a situation because you're so deep at receiver after drafting Emeka Egbuka, a guy like Sterling Shepard, and this happened last year, he may have to start the season on the practice squad.
May have to. Although you may see Godwin on the PUP list as well.
That's possible too. Very possible. I'm glad you brought that up.
That opens up another wide receiver slot at least for the first 4 weeks.
I'm glad you brought that up. And we talked about the other day about losing Tristan Wirfs. You have to understand, you may be without Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin for a month. Both of those guys could easily start on PUP. Now, fortunately, it's much easier to replace a Tristan Wirfs with a Emeka Egbuka and others than it is to replace a Chris Godwin than it is to replace Tristan Wirfs, because you got multiple players that can do that. That won't be the case at left tackle. They're very deep at receiver. They're going to have tough decisions to make. And, I'll tell you, the guy that I'm looking forward to, and if this guy isn't a player, he's going to be in a very small body. Was he weigh like 152 pounds? He's going to be the Bucky Irving of receivers, and that's Tez Johnson. His former Oregon teammate. They've talked about him. They almost manifested this to happen. 7th round pick. He wanted to come to Tampa. He told people he was going to join his friend in Tampa, and here he is showing up in Tampa Bay. So exciting guy. Going to have to win the return job over Cameron Johnson and do some things on special teams to make this team. But he's electric. Like, his tape is so much fun to watch. That and he's not going to be afraid. He's got a lot of the same mentality as Bucky has. And like I said, they were teammates. They were boys. And Bucky called him every night during the season last year. He checked in on his guy. He knows how his guy did. If he can do it, I can do it, sort of thing. Really confident. It's going to be a fun guy to watch in training camp. No way to know really what the residual will be or the effect of losing a Tristan Wirfs for however long you lose them. But just from a continuity standpoint, and then Baker, year one was just trying to find himself again. He was just trying to rediscover who Baker was. Todd Bowles brought him in, had to compete with Kyle Trask. Okay, it wasn't really a competition, but whatever. $4 million make-it contract, which is really insignificant as quarterbacks go. Just tried to find his love of football again, and he kind of got that with the Rams, his last team before he signed with Tampa Bay a year later. And Dave Canales, who had never called plays, did a nice job. He was his sort of his optimist bully, as he called him, but not a great play caller. Flat out wasn't a great play caller, and that because they were last again in rushing. And then last year, Liam comes in, who he had a history with the Rams, and the dude goes 4,500 yards, 42 touchdowns, I think. Way too many interceptions, by the way.
And way too many fumbles.
And too many fumbles, but had a career year. You can't fault the way he played. Got to be more careful with the football for sure. In year 3, by adding guys like Emeka Egbuka, by knowing what you have in Bucky Irving, Tristan Wirfs notwithstanding, this should be a better offense. It should be a better offense. Now, the thing about Baker, and there's no way around this, and I know that they kind of make excuses for him at times, at least Todd Bowles does. You don't want to coach out the playmaker in him. You don't. I mean, you don't want to tell Brett Favre not to be Brett Favre, right? But you do have to understand when the journey is over, Baker needs to play, and I've talked to a lot of his coaches about this. He needs to understand that if you get hurt, we're screwed. And I don't care about the Gator fan that loves Kyle Trask. Look, any backup quarterback, really this is true. If you have to get through one game and win one game with a backup quarterback, you hope he can win one game. If you have to use him for 3 games, you hope he can win one game, because there's just not a lot of backups that are going to go in there and do a credible job or a job as good as your starter, unless you don't have a very good starter. So Baker has to play the position with more awareness that if I get hurt, the season is over. It really is. And Tom Brady used to say this. Brady would say, "Hey, I'd rather, lose 2 games, play like crap, and lose 2 games, throwing the ball away, than to get hurt and be out for the rest of the season." Like, we can overcome those losses. We can't overcome me not playing. And Baker has to keep that in the front of his mind. Look, if you're going for it on third down and you lower your shoulder, that's just being competitive. I mean, you can almost live with that, goal line, stuff like that. But man, you can't be scrambling around back there and dipping shoulders and taking hits, and you can't turn the ball over. I mean, you said it, Steve. The guy led the NFL in interceptions last year. You got to erase that. You can't have that many turnovers. He hurt them in games last year.
No question about it. And, the fumbles are another part of it too. And he had way too many of those. Like it wasn't just, you can look at the interceptions and go, that's bad. He led the league, but how many fumbles did he have as well?
Yeah, a lot.
That part of the game, if he can reduce the number of turnovers and times the ball's on the ground, like the offense is going to be that much better already.
Oh yeah.
With doing nothing else.
Just the retention, just the continuity of the offense, of the scheme.
And how much less pressure is that on the defense when you're not turning the ball over? Those sudden changes, the short fields,
it's huge. It's everything.
I mean, we know that, the defense at times did well last year, at times looked gassed. If you can cut those turnovers down, don't give the short field, don't give the sudden change, don't give the quick turnaround. I mean, that we talk about complementary football and it sounds easy, but when you do it well, everything becomes easier for you.
Well, I say this, and it's in their minds. How did the season end? They lost to the Washington Commanders at home, a team they beat week 1. Now, the Commanders got better, and I think Jaden Daniels is a phenomenal quarterback. Not a good one. I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. They're going to get better and better, and yeah, they're in the NFC. But how did they really lose that game? Even though Washington dominated time of possession and they couldn't get off the field on third down, all those things are true, right? But the defense gets a huge turnover, okay, in their own red zone. The Bucs had been moving the ball up and down the field when they had it. They'd just thrown a first down pass to Mike Evans. And I hated the call, which I thought was terrible, and the execution was worse. But they run the jet sweep to Jalen McMillan, and Mayfield mishandles the handoff, and Baker is taking the blame for that. I hated the call. I hated it, even if it had worked. I hated it.
That deep in your own territory, I didn't. In the middle of the field, it's a little different.
Well, if we're going to run the ball too, remember Bucky Irving was gashing them at that point.
Yes,
like you couldn't tackle Bucky Irving. So if I'm going to run the ball, I want the guy who is paid to run the ball to run the ball. I don't want to get tricky and risk exactly what happened, which was a botched handoff. You give them the ball back, they score, okay, and then what do? You drive back down there again, okay, and you got a chance to get back in the game, and you get the ball, I don't know, first and goal at the 3, and the center screws up. Your rookie center mishears a call, snaps the ball early. Instead of, first and goal at the 3, you lose 3 yards, and you wind up kicking a field goal. Just those 2 plays, okay? The defense did nothing, right? They didn't throw an interception. You hurt yourself because of what you did. We talked about fumbles. That fumble went to Baker Mayfield. That fumbled jet sweep went to Baker Mayfield. Mental mistakes. Graham Barton, it's too important. You're playing too good of teams. It's one thing it happens during the regular season against a crap team like New Orleans last year, you might get away with it. But if you're in the postseason and you do that, it costs you games. And I think this team learned that last year. I would hope they did, because you saw what happened when Washington left here. They went all the way to the frickin' NFC Championship game, okay? And the Bucs had beaten them in week 1 and should have beat them in the postseason. But for the fact that the defense couldn't get off the field. But even withstanding that, the Bucs offense had those 2 plays that were just calamitous, and it cost them the game. And so if I'm Josh Grizzard, and I know they've talked about this, hey guys, especially in the postseason, but let's practice this week 1. Hell, let's practice this in training camp or joint practices. We cannot make mistakes. to cost ourselves. We can't beat Bucks cannot beat the Bucks, okay? You have to do the simple things right? Snap the ball, have the snap count, no pre-snap penalties, right? Know who you're blocking. Don't fumble the ball. Catch the ball. Like, just the basics. You do those things, they're good enough to beat any team in the NFC, including the Eagles. Hell, maybe especially the Eagles, because this team, the last time they played the Eagles last few times in the postseason, they handled them. I mean, manhandled them. They seem to have the recipe, tush push or not. So the big emphasis has to be, and it starts with your quarterback. It just does. If your quarterback's on it, Tom Brady didn't turn the ball over very much. But boy, you drop a pass or fumble a ball, and he was going to come after you, and he was never going to throw the ball to you again. He didn't trust you. So Baker has to be the leader of that. Baker can't lead the league in interceptions. Baker can't lead the league or be near the top of fumbles, so lost fumbles. You want that offense to work? You want that offense to be better? You want to not lose games and beat yourselves? It's got to be drilled into that quarterback's head. And I'm not saying he's not great when he competes and makes plays off script and all that. You don't want to coach that out of him. But he better know when the journey is over, and he better get those guys, ready to execute and not put the ball on the ground. You have to do better on that side. Everything else he did was spectacular. You'll take 4,500 yards, 43 touchdowns, whatever it was, like unbelievable. But they're good enough now that if they don't beat themselves, Steve, they're going to beat a lot of teams in this league with that offense. Hey, tomorrow we'll take a look at the Bucs defense as it's currently constituted. It should improve with some of the adjustments and moves that they've made in the offseason, including the draft. So we'll do that. And make sure you go see our friends at Breitling Boutique International Plaza Mall. Check out the NFL Team Watches, 104th year anniversary being observed while supplies last. 32 teams, 32 different watches, including your favorite Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's Breitling Boutique International Plaza Mall. Make sure you let them know about it, that you heard about it right here, on Sports Day Tampa Bay. We'll be back with another podcast tomorrow. For Steve Versnick, I am Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great day, everybody.